Welcome back to the Nesman Hockey Podcast. John Zella, James Nichols back with you on a Sunday morning, getting into the afternoon. Took us a little while to get set up here. A game day episode, so you're hearing this, hopefully. We're going to publish right away, so before the Dallas Stars game. Hopefully you're hearing this. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Nothing really happened, so it
It's
might
hard
just
to
be a
answer that
slow.
question without talking about what happened.
Yeah, and I really do. I want to hold that excitement because I think there's a lot of kind of layers there.
Yeah.
But I do want to, before jumping into everything, go over what led up to this moment because it's been, I've joked kind of the last month or so that I can't believe there's half the season left and that it has been a grind. It has felt every
Yeah.
game's felt like two games, and the days in between you're just kind of toiling over what could possibly happen. Is something going to happen? Are they going to turn it around? Forget about any kind of coaching change or anything like that. So it's just been a really, I think, difficult season because of the potential. And so here we are, with quite a bit to discuss before a game, and we can, you know, kind of cross our fingers, but we'll get there in a second. So the Islanders go 0-3-1 on their road trip, falling to the Preds,
Yeah.
the Wild, the Jets, and the Blackhawks. And we kind of discussed the Predators game, disappointing considering how they played against the Leafs and the opportunity kind of ahead of them. All kind of ugly losses, I think, particularly against the Wild. And I'm almost never right when I make guesses, but how right was I with Marc Andre Fleury? Congratulating him the day before. I did it
Yeah.
here and on Islanders Anxiety, and just, man, I nailed it. Hate that I nailed it, but
Yeah.
I did it. I kind of want to lump all of that together. Um, like I said, all ugly losses. What did you take away from this recent road trip?
Um, you know, Part of the reason why the change was made is because the team lacked fire. No sense of urgency, amongst the roster, despite, getting their ass handed to them on a couple of occasions. And, you know, there were games where you're looking at their opponent and you're saying to yourself, why are they getting their ass handed to them by the Chicago Blackhawks, right? Why are they losing 5-0 to a lethargic Minnesota Wild team? Like these are games you can't let slip. And
Second half of
they
back to back for the Wild.
yeah,
Just opportunities really to just kind of stay afloat in a tight race when the Devils, as you know, pretty well, are kind of struggling with injuries and all this stuff. There's a real opportunity there. The
yeah,
Penguins wake up, and it's all the teams around them are kind of winning hockey games, and all they needed to do is win
yeah,
a game here, and maybe steal a second point against the Blackhawks, which is terrible to say. And it's a different conversation. I don't know that today, the second half of the show is going to be different, but I they're at least in the mix a little bit, and they have a little bit less of a mountain to climb. They've taken a few steps forward, but continue.
yeah. Well, no, that's the thing. Like the reason why this is all happening is because they're not far out of it. They're literally 3 points out. So, or actually, excuse me, 2 points out. One win tonight if Detroit or Toronto doesn't ascend in the standings, which Toronto does play, and so does Detroit. So, all these teams are playing. If Detroit and Toronto each lose, like the Islanders can find themselves back in playoff position by way of you know points. So they might be sitting right out of it because
Points
they
percentage.
points percentage and everything, yeah, stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is they're close, right? But when you look at the way that Lane Lambert wasn't able to really rally this team, especially with the leaders on this team. Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, like Matthew Barzell is now a leader, amongst that group. Like you look at these guys and you say to yourselves, these guys really can't rally right now. They can't, muster up the oomph in their game to, you know, take a point at least against the Chicago Blackhawks. No, they
Or get
lose.
two.
right, or get 2, no, they lose, like, you can't lose a game to and mind you, a Connor Bedardless Blackhawks team. They're missing their
Right.
best player. So, it's one of those things where, you know, the Islanders just had it seemed like there was no accountability, right? The head coach wasn't holding the team accountable for their efforts, and as a result, the leaders in the room were kind of just like, "Yep, we don't like it, but gotta just try and be better." And like that can't be. At some point, you gotta get a little bit angry, and they weren't. So you know, with the change, we'll talk about it, but you expect things to be different.
Yeah, and I think on the players' side, there's definitely a lot to discuss with the coaching change. Um, I even wrote down here that the Blackhawks loss, which I wasn't able to watch in its entirety, is just almost too ugly to talk about, and really the whole week. Um, but they allow 5, 4, and 4 goals against in those games, and which is the defense. I don't care how many goals they scored, even though the scoring is kind of dried up here and there. It's not been very consistent, and this is in addition to an ugly January. A lot of games where the Islanders can't score goals. All of a sudden, they're allowing 4 or 5 goals a game. Um, in so far in January, they've allowed 4 more goals in 6 out of 9 games. They're 2-5-2 this month so far, and luckily there's 10 days left in the month and a considerable amount of games, and it's they're I think they should consider themselves lucky that they were even limping along for a while, getting overtime loss points to have even just be in this position. And something that Lou mentioned in the presser is that he would not have made a coaching change if he didn't think the Islanders were in it. That's the same philosophy that he's used with the trade market. If he didn't think that it was either good for the team long term, Bo Horvat, or will help them right then. And Horvat did help right away, right? They make the playoffs, right? He made that move because he thought that that could happen. Now they stepped in shit the entire way into the playoffs, and they fell down the mountain into it, but they made it nonetheless. And it means something. I can't really describe it, but it means something. So you're kind of sitting in a place right now where the trade deadline is coming up. Now you have a new coach. Things can kind of start moving forward. And I I, I guess I want to ask you: do you think Lou is waiting for the return to make this change, or was this kind of this just happened to be the right time? Because I think I mentioned last episode this is either happening before the All Star break or after the season, if they don't, especially if they don't make the playoffs. And so yeah, this is still before the game,
Yeah.
but before the All Star break. But is it is it just a dreadful month, and these things just take time to figure out? Like it was happening before the All Star
Yeah.
break, one way or another. Like hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. I honestly, I think that this has been, a long time coming. You go back to November, they lost one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 in a row. I would think that around then, Lamoriello is probably thinking to himself, okay, if this goes on any longer, what am I going to do here?
But then it
And
does. Like it largely does. I know they were second
well,
in the
they win
division
3
and
in a
top three.
row, they lose 2, they win 2, they lose, and they win 4, so they went hot and cold, So my point is that I would think that back in November, he at least started to think about it because there's no way that, you know, they lose on what, 2 days ago, and he picks up the phone and goes, "I want Patrick Waugh. You wanna coach the Islanders? Cool, thanks. See you Monday." Like, that's not what happened. So he had probably been contemplating for a while, like, "Okay, I see what's going on here." It's a lethargic team, they're lethargic efforts. Who is going to kick them in the ass and light that fire under them and really motivate them to work? Because that's what this team does, right? Like, they are a better team on paper, but they're still a team that needs to work. And if they take shifts off, they're going to lose games. And that is not going to happen under Patrick Waugh. So I think this was a long time coming. You go back to that losing streak in November, and then you start to see it creeping in again. They lose a couple of games to, guys like, the Blackhawks and the Wild. And Just even the San Jose Sharks back in the beginning of December, and you say to yourself, okay, those are points left on the table. Those are games that they need to be motivated enough to skate their ass off and win. Who's going to do that for them? And the answer couldn't have been more clear. It's Patrick Roy. I mean, that's a guy that is not going to accept anybody taking a shift off.
Yeah,
And
go ahead. Sorry.
we'll talk more about what that means, but I tend to think that this was something, and again, Lambert's been here for a couple of years now behind the bench. You've seen, post game pressers where they're just decimated, and
Yeah.
he's just kind of like, yeah, it's disappointing, and looks for the next question,
And that
and it's
was
like,
that was the response from the rest of the team as well. And I don't
well,
again,
and
I don't know
that's the
what the
problem.
expectation is. Yeah, it needs to be that they're angry.
Listen,
And
every once in a while, and I'll tell you this. I was texting somebody about this yesterday, a little closer to the organization, and when I had first heard about this, I said, "What's going on here?" Like, this was expected, but what a major change in the culture they're about to make. And that person said to me, "Everybody got a little too comfortable, a little too nice around here. It's time to grow some balls." And I said, "Oh, it's
yeah, and
like that."
I definitely want to talk about that because there was a lot there. And um it sounds like I kind of know your answer, but I want you to elaborate on that just to kind of give a little, not a postmortem, but and a wrap up to Lambert's tenure here. He said the other night, I think this is it might be his last quote or close to it. He said, "I don't feel the team is anywhere near where it can or should be. We have some players on the team we clearly need more from." And at a certain point, he almost wrote his own last words. That was on him. He was face first into the point of him not being able to get the most out of this team that has shown it before. And as you said, and as we've said a million times, is better on paper than it has been in years past. The injuries, I've said too many times. I don't think that was the problem. I think it was system. It was not personnel. Doesn't mean that Lamoriello won't make more moves, but I largely don't believe that was the case. And I don't think Wild's going to just turn it around in 2 seconds either. So Lambert's relieved of his duties Saturday. We've kind of been beating around the bush here a little bit with not being straightforward with that. He finished his Islanders tenure 61, 46, and 20. And it feels like the regulation and overtime losses all came in a row. Those 66 losses, regardless whether they got a point or not. It felt like, and they just all happened this season. The negativity around the team was just made for a dreadful experience, I think. And the players must be feeling that. I've certainly felt that before as well. Um, and I think let's fully dive into it. The main story is Patrick Watt. What did you sent me a text yesterday. You were the one who broke the news to me. What did I respond with when I sent you that text?
Now I gotta go look at it because I don't want to mess this up. Um, I said, "Oh," and you said, "Get the hell out of here." No way.
Yeah, I
And I
just go ahead.
and I said, "Holy shit!" And you
Yeah.
just went LMAO. Like that was probably the best encapsulation of that moment of like shock and speechlessness. Just because, again, like I said a little bit earlier, we were expecting a change at some point. Like this couldn't go on much longer. You alluded to that last week, but the stark difference in who they let go versus who they brought in was shocking, especially because of the fact that nobody had Wah on their radar. And there were three or four, right? Lambert's the fifth. So there were actually four head coaches already let go this season that you could sit there and say to yourself, I could see them back in the NHL real soon. Dean Evison, Jay Woodcroft, um,
I mean,
even
Bruce
Craig
Bourgeot
Berube,
was still out there. Like there were
Bruce
some other
Boudreau,
ones
correct.
that I
But
mean, while I was around, I heard I say I hear rumblings like I'm close to anything. Like But on podcasts and Twitter and whatever, hearing Wah could have been a potential candidate in Ottawa. That's kind of what I envisioned happening. So when I heard that he was on the island for a lot of reasons, it was a surprise to me. This is a big fish for the Islanders. I don't know that they've brought in a coach. Now, I'll say this thinking about Butch Goring was the coach, and that was a big deal for the Islanders and maybe around the league, but I don't think Butch Goring had quite the cachet that Patrick Waugh did. Um, and it may just have been the era, and there's a little bit of recency bias and things like that. But I mean, Butch had kind of finished up in the '80s, and 10 years later, he was coaching the Islanders. Waugh's been out of the game for more longer than that. But I can't think of a coach that came in with the pedigree. Maybe Trotz that just came in with a certain pedigree,
Yeah,
and I think this is not a knock on Trotz. I think Patrick Waugh just brings something else
I
to
agree.
the table. I mean, Barry Trotz is well known, but Patrick Waugh transcends things. Like it's just very different. And maybe it's just because I'm a '90s hockey fan, and as you are, and
Yeah.
early 2000s. So we just kind of you hear Patrick Waugh, and this is crazy. Seeing an
The
Isles
thing
logo
is,
anywhere near him is wild to me.
the thing is, Trotz brought structure and you know discipline and work ethic to a team that was led with, I don't want to say respect, but he was soft but firm. Let's put it that way. Patrick Waugh is firm, but soft is the last thing you can call that guy. I mean, he is aggressive. He literally was over the glass fighting with Bruce Boudreau during a game behind the bench about whatever was going on the ice. Like, he is fiery, and that's just the stark difference here. I think that's just what the shock in in the person who I texted saying, like, listen, like, I'm shocked here at the choice, just because the Islanders' whole identity is built around respect and camaraderie, and not to say that Patrick Waugh is going to come in and totally you know like bury that, but to think that he's going to you know I don't want to word this wrong. He's got this way about himself where he can be very edgy with his own staff, his own team, but and especially his opposition, because all he cares about is winning.
Yeah, I
And
that's what I kind of wanted to. I was holding off on this. There's a lot of comments about quote a country club atmosphere on
yes,
the island. Do you think that was true? Was it just that I don't think they were complacent, right? It's not like they were in the first wild card spot and just like, this team could be better. They're winning some games, but they really need a kick in the pants. And it might be the coach, right? It was different than that. They looked devastated. They looked depressed, right? So I don't know that it was complacency so much, but I want to hear your 2 cents on that.
well, I think that maybe it wasn't a country club, but it definitely was you know a complacent club. Can I say that? Like,
I
yeah,
I mean, I don't necessarily think to me that how I define that word is that they're okay with how things are going. They look
correct.
defeated to me, and
Um,
they needed that fire. And as I said last week, I don't think, and maybe I asked you, I don't think there was a team in the NHL that could benefit more from a coaching change than the New York Islanders because the talent is there, the skill is there. They just need. I think we said that going into Lane Lambert's time with the Islanders that this isn't going to be the change Lamoriello thinks it is. It's too much of the same voice.
I agree.
He doesn't come in with the cachet and the pedigree that Trotz had, despite having been with him through all of that. And they needed somebody to really take them. Trotz got them as far as he could get them, and it was
Yeah.
amazing to see, right? And they are even Trotz said in an interview of playing against the Preds, we were so close. If we made the final, we were going to win. I'm pretty sure I might be paraphrasing, but he said pretty close to that.
No, I
And
agree. I
Lambert
agree.
didn't seem like it was the type of person to really get him over that hump. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even just more of the same. It was considerably worse, that his record was way more. I mean, they got points, overtime losses, whatever, and half of them or more were this season. But he went 61 and 66 essentially as an Islanders coach. I really don't want to, seeing 61, 46, and 20. He lost 66 games with the Islanders. There were 20 points left on the table. Again, most of them this season, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, in hindsight, this makes total sense. Patrick Waugh,
Yeah,
as you said, the fieriness and what they need. Again, I think the coaching change at all, whoever you brought in, was gonna lift a little bit of a weight off the team and like take that cloud away. As Lou said in the presser, though, it is now on the players. You're bringing in a new voice. You're bringing somebody in with energy. I'm
yeah,
adding this
100%.
part, where you're bringing this new coach in, and now it's on the players. So
Right.
in that case, I think the players may have known, and maybe that is complacency. As a long-winded way of answering your question, sound like Terry Ryan. A long-winded way of answering your question, that maybe it was complacency because they're like, look, it's not on us. Like these systems don't work. There's no energy. We're not seeing the leadership we needed, and they were kind of just showing up and going through the motions. And like I said, in hindsight, this move makes a ton of sense. Again, not the coaching change, but Patrick Waugh,
Yeah,
his fieriness, that edge. I love the quotes. And I was
I
joking on
want to talk
Twitter
about a few
yesterday.
of those.
Um, some of the older quotes of, I can't hear Jeremy Roenick because I have my 2 Stanley Cup rings in my ears.
Uh,
Um, just unapologetically himself, and to a point, he was asked during the presser about that and what's changed even since the last time he coached in the NHL. And
yeah,
he's like, it's night and day or black and white or whatever he said. And it's a big deal. He's grown.
right. So, all right, a couple things here. One, you know, to answer what we were talking about with the complacency, I think you said it best. Like they were complacent with, where they were at. Again, you like to say this, and I very much agree with. Two things can be true. I think although they didn't like the results they were getting, they were complacent in their work ethic, and that wasn't going to change unless somebody came in and said, "You need to change now." And that wasn't happening. So that's why I think where we are today. Let's talk about Patrick Waugh, now the head coach of the Islanders, and what that's going to do, right? Lane Lambert is yesterday's news. Today's news is Patrick Waugh. One of the first things that he made sure to say was it's playoff hockey from here on out.
Love that.
Love
And
that.
that's what we had been saying, right? Like the desperation, the
Yeah.
intensity level, especially that we got used to even before Trotz. That was the
Yeah.
hallmark of this team. That was energy and tenacity.
Yeah.
And that would just it went by the wayside. They became baby food. It was just
Right.
soft, just
And
terrible.
then, one of the things that I loved seeing was, you know, the first thing that he did was when he got line rushes out this morning. He's part of the line rushes. He's vocal, he's active. Like, and I don't mean just like vocal. He's like, "Hey, let's do better." Like, he's vocal. Like, work your ass off. Like, get the fucking puck. This, that, and the other thing. Like, he's doesn't even know these guys for 10 minutes, and he's already stopping line rushes and saying, we need to be good at we need to be good at this. We need to be good at line rushes. If we're not good at line rushes, we're not going to be good in the game. Like, he's already coming in and kicking their ass. One of my colleagues, Andrew Fanticino, said he doesn't, of NYI hockey now, he doesn't remember the last time the Islanders took more than one water break in a practice, because it's been, I guess, in the words that we used earlier, a complacent club. Yeah,
Well, it
we're not.
was interesting. Was it Pantorno? I had the trending thing from our Twitter up, and someone
Okay.
had said it feels like training camp. Like
Yeah.
that's the intensity level that they're trying to get. I wish I found because I want to appropriately um, mention who was kind of doing this. I can't remember. Maybe it was Pantorno. Um, Gross said, he stops line rushes. We need to be good at this. Um, yeah, um, I can't find it, but I like that quote from Wob. But I'm sorry, continue.
Sorry, real quick, breaking news. Sounds like Corey Perry might be going to the Oilers. Um,
That makes a lot of sense for some reason.
it does make a lot of sense.
They've won like 60 games in a row now, and
13 games in a row.
imagine that on the island.
Well,
I think you know what's really funny. Just like a quick aside. I think we've been lucky as a show, like as far as content's concerned, to get kind of meta for a second. As a show, we've been really lucky over the last number of years, and almost over 200 episodes. I wish we knew. I counted some other stuff and post games and stuff, but we've been lucky that there have been a lot of ups and downs. I don't know what do you talk about if they won 13 games in a row. I feel like we'd come on and be like, "This is great. I love what I'm seeing. See you next week," and it would be like a
we'd be doing a
3 minute.
lot of nitpicking. Like, remember that one play where Pellick just didn't really clear the zone, but Sorokin made that great save? We'd be like nitpicking on stupid little things like that.
I maybe after a while, I feel like the beginning of the streak, like 10 or 11 games or something, or huge point streak, and they're playing well even in losses in overtime. I think I maybe it's just at this point, I think I would just be so thrilled with it, and I wouldn't try to nitpick. I just want to enjoy it. I'd be happy to take 3 minute episodes or 10 minute episodes, and like there's just no reason for that. They're winning hockey games. Like
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. The Islanders are at plus 102 against the Minnesota Wild tonight as you're listening to this show on Monday, and you can make that bet with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN, and new customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved.
To bring the conversation back to WA, because I don't want to forget this. We're talking about completely different feel right from the get go, just from us looking at it from afar. Um, right here, Matthew Barzell, being interviewed, says he walked into the room today in a completely different feel. Conn Smythe, Stanley Cups, maybe the best goalie of all time, and he's been through everything, right? And one of the things that I was reading about yesterday from Scott Wheeler of the Athletic, he had said, and I just want to pull it up here. I'm not a big juniors guy, but that's where Patrick Waugh was right before he came to the Islanders. He was the head coach of the Quebec Ramparts. They won the CHL championship last year. And Scott Wheeler said last year's Ramparts were the most structured and well coached junior team I've ever watched. They didn't even look like a CHL team identity, a clear systems and roles within it. And those kids played their hearts out for Patrick Watt. It convinced me he's a very good coach. Now, pair that with the fact that he's already won a Jack Adams Award with the Colorado Avalanche back in the day. Like, look, people are going to have what to say about, you know, the fact that he maybe doesn't treat people the best in trying to get his message across. People are going to have what to say about how he gets his message across, and maybe, sometimes he has a lack of respect. He addressed that yesterday. In the presser, he said, "Listen, I've reflected on my time as a head coach in the NHL. It's a night and day difference in my attitude. He basically has said, um, and look, obviously he needs to still prove that. But the one thing he does not have to prove is getting players to work for him. Because when he left the Avalanche, it was kind of a shock. Nobody really thought that that was going to happen because it wasn't like he was unsuccessful. It was more of a, needing to work on himself kind of thing. And he's been away from the game for it might be close to 10 years. I don't remember exactly when he was the head coach of the Avalanche, but even if it's not, it's significant. It's over 5 years. So he's had some time to, get away. He's had some time to reflect on, himself. He's had some time to put those practices into motion, winning a championship at the CHL level, which is look, that's no joke. It's not the NHL, but it's proof, it's a track record that, you know, he has the right systems, he has the right idea, the right mindset. And the fact that, someone like Scott Wheeler is he's not going to oversell something. He's saying like, look, those kids played their hearts out for him. It means something. So this is this is the exact culture change that this team needed. Quite frankly, they needed this culture change, and it's probably going. Look, I'm not saying that they're going to go on a ridiculous Oilers like run right now and win 13 games in a row, but I would not be surprised to see 6 or 7 games rattled off in a row, and out of the gate, right? Every team, most teams get that new coach jump. I wouldn't be surprised to see that start tonight. Dallas has, had a couple of games in a row where they played against the Flyers. They got their ass beat. They beat the ass of the Devils last night. But the second half of back to back now, and those are harder to win. So, you wonder what a Wa led it's so weird to say, a Wa led Islanders is going to look like tonight. But I bet there's a lot more intensity in their game. And it's just there's so many layers to this hiring. Like even yesterday when the NHL just tweeted a graphic of Patrick Waugh hired, and it was a graphic of him behind the Avalanche bench where he had a beard. I was just thinking to myself, there are so many layers to this one graphic that Patrick Waugh is the head coach of the New York Islanders. So long-winded way of saying like um this was the change, a necessary change, and I think it's the right move.
I definitely agree that it's the right move. Like I said, I think there's a tenacity missing from here, and it has been close to 10 years. He started, I think he stepped down. He resigned ahead of the 16-17 season. He was there. He won the Jack Adams in 13-14, and then he was there for 2 seasons after. He wins the Jack Adams, as you said, in that first season. The next 2 years are not great. And what I thought was really interesting about bringing in Watt, and I do think for the players' sake, it's it's a good change. I did question it, and I posted this on Twitter. I think it's an interesting change and even fascinating, even that Lou would go with somebody that is as hard headed as he is. So you get somebody in Patrick Waugh that has a lot of opinions. And there was a quote in the article following his resignation with NHL.com, um, when asked about the philosophical differences between his vision and with the Avalanche and Joe Sakic. He said it was more that the type of players and stuff like that we didn't necessarily agree on. And I'm interested, it's good to hear why, I don't think he's watched a ton of games. I think he's familiar with the team, maybe as a whole, as a lot of other players are, as a lot of other, media people or people around the NHL that aren't necessarily keeping tabs on the Islanders unless they're doing really well and they're, in the Eastern Conference final. Um, I think what's also interesting is it's the right person coming in. I'm a little confused that Lou let it get to that point. Let's use the country club mindset and complacency as the words for a second. Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that Lou let it get to that point? He doesn't strike me as like this duo is interesting, right? They could either be
I
oil and
have
water or just like just a scary tandem, right? When you have two people that are just gonna like no matter where you go in the organization now, you're gonna get it. And isn't that weird though that
I
it got there?
I think that Lamoriello, and maybe this is uncharacteristic of him, but this is what I think. I really think Lamoriello, for a while, was sitting there saying, "I made a choice to let Barry Trotz go for this guy. This has to work."
Oh, I
And
said that last week. I can't remember if it
once,
was here
yeah,
or anxiety, but yeah, he has to own the mistake, and he
yeah,
let it go as long as
well,
possible because now he's
yep,
said out loud, "I made a mistake. This didn't work, and it wasn't working, and now here we are, and we've made a
yeah,
change." And he's not someone to just swallow his pride. And I think what's really interesting is, and he does this with trades too. Oh, were you looking at anybody else? No, just Patrick Waugh. Come on, dude. Like, it's okay that you were. No one's gonna say that. You know, you can still own the road, so to speak, and say, yeah, I talked to some people and they just weren't the right ones. You have to say who they were. When I spoke with Patrick, he was the guy. He was the one that I wanted, and that's who we got. And to say it's as if you joked earlier. Just he just picks up the phone and he's like, "Hey Pat, hey Lou, you want to do this? Sure. See you Monday." Like that's how Lou makes it sound like it happened,
right,
right? Like there weren't like he's going over. Oh, we had these conversations and this and that over a period of time, and he shut down. I believe it was Andrew Gross, and I'm not mean like he got his hand slapped or something, but you know Gross asked how long were these conversations happening, and Lou said it was immaterial. Um, I think it's important at some point to know that answer. It certainly didn't happen overnight. It's kind of like when a player, there's no meddling or things like that, and a player signs on July 1st, and it's a very, a lengthy contract and has a lot
yeah,
of like no moves after 2 years and a bonus and this. It's like you work that out in 5 minutes. That's incredible.
yeah.
Like that. It just didn't happen like that. So
God,
it's
I'm sorry, real quick, just to I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm so jealous of Islanders writers right now. They have a quote machine from this guy.
oh, and it's Patrick Roy, right? It's like you're
Oh
just
my
like
god.
everything that he says, and I do want to say this. I There's been a lack, and maybe just because the league is much more in a great way, so much more diverse than it was maybe when we were growing up. I remember listening to quotes when you could, right, on ESPN, or you found something on the early internet from a
Yeah.
quote from a press conference. I did not know how much I missed that French Canadian accent. It is incredible to have that back
Yeah.
in
I mean,
for the
listen,
Islanders.
he just says something, as far as like look, and it's just the way he says it, right? It's not like this is like a whoa quote. It's just you can hear him the way he's saying this just by the plain text of it. It's quote, I'm gonna say something cliche here, but the defense wins championships, right? That's what he says, right? Defense wins championships, right? That's what we're gonna work on. We're gonna focus on our defense. Just saying that, like knowing that, like, yeah, that's what they need to do because they suck defensively. And the way he's saying it is like, let's just call a spade here. It's just it means so much more than just being like, yeah, we got to be better defensively.
Yeah, I mean, and that's obvious, and I think I wonder how long that goes, frankly, because Lamoriello really won't say anything bad about his team, and perhaps that's the coach's role. Um, Waz going to come in here and he's calling the team out about the defense. I mean, I don't think he's not trying to make anybody, and it's also not something the team isn't aware of. The team knows they're leaking like a sieve, and they have a goalie that should be playing much better and is playing really well and just isn't getting the support and subtext to the Islanders over the last however long, just like not getting support. Either it was either goal scoring or structure in their own zone, and they never had both at the same time. This is going back to the Doug Weight years. You could score a ton of goals and you couldn't get a save, or play in your own zone, or you could play in your own zone and you couldn't score a goal. And if Watt can bring out the best in both of that and just play a more structured team, give me boring hockey again. Give me the just can't seem to score a goal, but they're not letting him in Islanders and
See,
get him back in the race. Like I don't think that's what he wants to do, but
no,
even as a baseline, I wouldn't mind that.
nope. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that the teams he coached with uh the Avalanche, those were exciting teams. Those were exciting teams. So I can't see him coming in and just
Which team?
being the Colorado Avalanche. When he coached the
Yeah,
Avalanche, those were exciting teams.
Yeah, that first
And
season, they win 50 games, but the next two, they're NHL 500.
yeah,
They're not super great. I think even the last year were they 39 and 39 or something like that. That doesn't make too much sense. Something like that. It was really close, like where they won around 40 games, which is something. Winning half your games is something, but they didn't have a particularly good record after his first season. Again, he wins the Jack Adams, right? And I think that's another thing where he's coming in and you have another one of these coaches that um, has proven he can do it. And if he's refined the ways in which he does it, I think it could be a recipe for success. Is there anything that worries you about Wah coming in? I think I don't mean to to piss on the fire of and just like not be excited because I definitely am. There's a part of me that just won't get over it's Patrick Waugh for a while, and that somebody with this pedigree is there just around this franchise. Like you said, it's PR gold, it's writing gold, it's journalism gold. Um, on the other side of it, is there anything that worries you?
not really. The only thing that would worry me is just if he can't keep his attitude in check if he takes it too far. But other than that, I don't. First, I don't see that happening, especially not with Lou Lamoriello around. And second, I kind of believe him that he's grown and learned from his previous experiences, and he doesn't want that to happen again. Like he doesn't. He's so there's so much incentive for him to not have things turn out the way they did last time because I don't think he wants to be away from the NHL again. I think there's the reason why he took the time and the steps to build himself up and come back the way he did was so that he could be more prepared this time. Not to say that he wasn't a good coach. He was definitely a good coach. I think the Jack Adams speaks for itself, but I think that there were definitely things that he noticed in himself that he needed to improve on before he could handle it again. And now he gets the opportunity, and I don't think he wants to, waste that. And, you know, it says a lot for what the Islanders' future is going to be because, you and I had a long conversation on, well, who's the replacement? Who's next? And he doesn't want to come in and be part of a rebuild. He wants to come in and win.
And this is a team that you can't rebuild. Like it would be
Correct.
really hard. You're
Correct.
still, I mean, not to get down a huge rabbit hole or anything, but they're still a year or two away from Nelson or Anders Lee being, um, you know, they have a year left each, I think, on their contract after this season. The cap goes up. Like there's an opportunity here for the Islanders to, if they would like, move on. I don't know why you would necessarily, but yeah, they're not rebuilding right now. This is a team, like you said, it's the best on paper it's been in a long time, and for good or bad, they've played the same this season, regardless of who's in the lineup. Pure involves in or out or whatever. It hasn't really, or the defense is injured. Um, it can Apple be in net, Sorokin or Varlamov. It really has not made a difference. And if someone can come in and just kind of fix that a little bit, and as you said earlier about Wah's time in, I'm forgetting the team name in the that won the Memorial Cup. If you just
Ramparts.
the Ramparts can come in and provide the structure and the roles, and that was something that the team really thrived on under Trotz. And I cannot for the life of me understand how Lambert just didn't get the message. Like, was he not there under Trotz forever on 3 different teams? And then even if he remembered that, why would you change it? What given Trotz's last year, and let's just hop on our excusable and just like it was injuries and the road trip and this and the whatever. Fine, even if those things were all true, I don't happen to subscribe to that because I think the professionals fucking figure it out. But why would you disrupt the apple cart to the point and then not have a plan? Oh yeah, we're just gonna not do any of that. Okay, and then what? It's beer league. That's kind of what you saw. It was just guys. you had the offense going. He figured that out, I guess, and that may have just been letting loose a little bit, but he just didn't do anything. He wasn't coaching the team, and at this level, you're not coaching and teaching. Like our experience as civilian hockey players, that we were always being taught. There was always something to learn, and you can always improve your game even at the pro level. But what they're there to do is provide structure, the roles. How are we going to play? What's the intensity? Getting the most out of your players. You're being a leader, right? That's like any workplace. You're not really going to teach people stuff. You can refine different skills but your job is to bring them the most out of them. I know Lou wanted to take as long as possible to not have to swallow his pride, but I don't know. I feel like we knew this. You just looked at this team and you're like, there's no way Matt Barzal is this player. There's no way. I don't care before or after Horvat. Like there's even more for him to give, and that's why you and I have had this conversation going back, quite a ways. Dozens of episodes ago, when we would argue about, is Matt Barzal elite? And for a long time, I think he has the tools to do it, but he is not. And now he's next to Horvat, and you're seeing it a little bit more, so coming into focus. And now is truly, he needs to be able to carry the team, and the two of them need to be able to do that together. They're all stars. They're superstars. They're not elite. You're not putting them in the conversation with other players. And now is the time. The Trotz era now is fully over. There are truly new voices. You have somebody that, as Barzal said, what are you going to argue with this guy? You're going to argue with Patrick Roy? You're not going to listen to him? I think you have to. And he's worked with Varlamov. Varlamov was with Colorado when Roy was there. Roy made some comments about how he doesn't really get involved. He lets goalie coaches do their thing. But what he will do is help them game to game, mentally, how to kind of let things go and move on and just and have a short memory, and so to speak. And I think that's important. He's a goalie in up until recently. And is it irony that the Islanders let Fleury win that game to pass Patrick Roy and then they sign him? Is there something there? Is that like his biggest coincidence ever?
Yeah, I
And
think
it's
it
like
is.
there's a part of me that thinks Lamoriello is watching this game, sees the graphics come up about how Fleury can do it, and he's like, Patrick Roy, yeah, he might work. You're like, he was a coach, right? And then one of his assistants just like gets him his number and he calls him. Like, it was it in Minnesota where he's like, yeah, that Patrick Roy guy, that sounds right, and just calls him, and then a week later he's the coach of the team. Like, there's got to be something there. It's like too much of a
Hey,
coincidence.
Patrick, I know that we let Fleury pass you up on the all-time list. Do you want to coach his team and beat the wheels off the Wild next time we
Yeah,
play them?
yeah. And then I joked on Twitter on our account that he also signed a PTO to back up
Yeah,
Sorokin, and to get
you'd be
at
rich.
least he has to tie Fleury the rest of the season. So every time Fleury gets a win now, Wild's going to play a game and get the win. I'm just joking, but it's interesting, the whole from top to bottom of what he brings to the team, um, who he is as a person, um, what the team desperately needs in this moment. Um, what are you looking for? 'Cause as we said at the top of the show, they played Dallas Stars tonight. Not the strongest play as of late, but still very much in the conversation. Is mostly because Vancouver and Edmonton are playing well. I believe they're in different. Are they in different divisions? I'm pretty sure they're in different divisions. Um, no, Edmonton and Vancouver are in the same division. That makes sense. Pacific, and Dallas is third with 59 points. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. An opportunity here to beat a good team, and that really can set the tone. What are you looking for from the Islanders tonight and WAP? Because it's not going to be these drastic changes, right? And they're practicing. We're seeing these quotes from practice today in this intensity. They have a game tonight.
They do.
They're playing tonight.
Well, and that's
So
exactly what I think that we're going to see from them. Same intensity as practice. Intensity, structure, um, heavy on the forecheck, uh, puck pressure consistently, and just a really fucking hard team to play against. And they're playing the Stars, who are no pushover. But I think that's what they're trying to match is be really heavy on the puck, be really heavy with the puck pressure, and be a real pain in the ass to play against. And look, maybe that goes back to the Islanders that we knew, just in a different way.
I mean, I think I missed that in general. It was fun to watch. I mean, I don't want. I'm trying to think of the Slapshot quote. It's like, "Let them know you're there." Like, win or lose, like take a piece of them. Like that. It's a
Right.
little old school phrasing there,
Right.
but
It's one of those things where tonight will be like, we might have lost by a goal, but we broke Jason Robertson's neck.
yeah. I mean, don't do that. Don't like literally.
Yeah,
Don't literally
figuratively.
like. Yeah.
Figuratively.
Don't literally hurt people. That's not the type of hockey we want. This isn't the '70s anymore. But
Right.
I yes, I I agree. Take a piece of them with you. Let them know you're there is maybe the quote. You know, Reggie Dunlop is in the locker room. Like, let them know you're there, and the Hanson brothers go crazy. If there was a way to revive, if this is the last stand for the identity line, this is a shot in the ass for them. I don't know that there's anybody. I would have sat them down, the three of them down, Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck, first thing, and said, if you're going to drive this team, if you are the identity line that I've been told about, now's your time. Contracts aside, I assume he would never bring that up because that's not his business. And he said as much that he didn't want to be involved in the management side of things, that he has enough to deal with as a coach. And that may have been one of the mistakes that he made in Colorado, just having a lot to deal with. Even though he mentioned near the end, it was a lot of Sakic making decisions, as he should as a general manager. Um, and Lou makes a lot of his own decisions, so it's not like he is going to ask for advice necessarily. But yeah, it's the three of them have an opportunity here to really step up. I agree that it's time for them to get their identity back. A little bit of the Islanders of old. And I personally, if they win tonight against the Dallas Stars, I think they could rattle off a few in a row. I
Oh
wouldn't I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if the team just goes 3-1 over the every 4 game chunk here each week. They're going 3-1 or so, and I think it'd be a huge confidence boost for them to beat a really good team. If they lose, I think it's tough. It really takes the wind out of the sails. I think they know that. I hope that they can bounce back after a tough morning skate. It doesn't sound like it was a morning skate at all. Frankly, it sounds like it was a practice. And I do want to see that fieriness behind the bench. I want to see, God, thinking about Martin and Clutterbuck and all these mistakes and these missed clears and all this stuff. I want to see, I want to see him put more pressure on the good players and not sit them. Right? I don't want to see Barzell have a so-so game and Lambert staple them to the bench for the last 5 minutes when they're down a goal, or it's a tie game or something, or even if they're up a goal. Why are you not having your best players out there? I don't want to see that. I want him to hold them more accountable and put more pressure on them. Put them out there in those situations. I want to see the players that are playing like shit and making the mistakes stapled. Absolutely stapled. Wallstrom may never play on this team ever again if he keeps playing the way he's playing. May as well just hang his jersey up. Keep your suits pressed, kid. Now there's no mistake. Now you're gonna know.
He's one of the guys I'm looking at most here. How much does this change affect him?
Yeah, it's been the same coaching staff for him for the entire time, pretty much, and like the messaging and this and that, and injuries and blah blah blah. Man, the whole team, they're it's a fairly young team. They've all watched '90s and early 2000s hockey growing up and this and that. So just having Patrick Waugh in the room, after the awe wears off, um, hopefully they're using that energy and that the butterflies in their stomach to help that translate to their game. Have that giddiness of being excited to play hockey again for Patrick Waugh. You're gonna let him down. He's not going to let you do it anyway. You're going to be in the press box or stapled to the bench, so you can't screw up. So yeah, Wahlstrom, Aho to a certain degree. It's going to be a lot of focus on defense, as you said earlier with one of his quotes during today's skate. Yeah, I think it's an important time for the Islanders. I'm worried that it doesn't work right away. I'm between. Well, the last time they did this, and a new coach came in that was really fiery, and Doug Waite, they went 24-14-9, or like some crazy record after, and it was, God, if it's not almost to the day, it was in January when Capuano was fired, I believe, and Waite comes in. There's a part of me really giddy to be like, this team is really going to respond. Granted, 90% of the team is different, but and it was 10 years ago. But I'm hoping that that's the case. The other thing is that it won't take right away, and it'll be a JG Pajot situation, and it is going to take a minute to adjust. They just really don't have the time for that, and my Islanders' pessimism and anxiety, just two things that run deep in Islanders fans' veins. If you watch the team long enough, it's hard to just get over that. Hopefully, they can start fresh. They're going in. Wa's coming with a clean record. Hopefully, the team thinks the same way, and they can create some momentum, because they just never were able to put it together. They have not won consecutive games to this last week in over a month. They've collected points in consecutive games here and there. The defense is terrible. The goalies are not playing up to snuff because they're not getting the support, and the high danger chances are just through the roof. So it's a good time to be an Islanders fan if you're tuning in to us for the first time, or Islanders podcast for the first time. It's going to be an interesting rest of the season. I hope you stick along with us and Islanders anxiety and through the island and skates at the stakes and whatever million podcasts. Never Say Die, THPN partner. Through the Island is also THPN partner. Listen to everything, because it's going to be a wild ride, I think, the rest of the way, good or bad. I think there's going to be a lot to discuss, and hopefully we do have those things to nitpick, as you said, where they're winning games, and we're seeing the changes, though, right? Oh, this is not the team we saw, and these are the reasons. So hopefully we have that to discuss, and it all starts in really just a few hours from now, if I can get this edited fast enough. Any closing words, or do we have more?
No,
We want to
closing words from Wah, not from myself. But Wah says, "I want our fans." Oh, sorry if you hear that car horn. There's
you're definitely gonna hear it. I'm not that good of an editor. I don't think
something going on outside my house.
I can do that. Hope maybe that was Patrick Waugh outside your house.
Closing thoughts from. Are we kidding? It's happening.
Choose different words. They're not liking that. Cut.
Okay, take 3. I want our fans to be proud of them. I want our fans to enjoy our team play, and that's my goal.
Yeah, he said something similar yesterday, and I appreciated that focus on the fans. I think that's his management practice coming in, where you have to say things like that. You have to motivate the fan base too. He knows who he is. I think he's got a lot of pride and not bashful. So if you go look back at some of his quotes, how he left Montreal, if you're not familiar with him, and maybe like his entire career, it is interesting. He seemingly played forever in 3 different decades for 2 different teams. Stanley Cups just up the wazoo. He's in the mix. I did love the back and forth at the end of the presser. I don't know if you caught that, maybe some of the quotes of Lou and Wah going back and forth about the 2001.
That was good. That was really good.
I meant to bring that up. It showed Lamoriello's personality, God forbid, and how maybe the two of them won't be oil and water, right? Maybe they really are going to be a good tandem, because they, in a good way, won't always see eye to eye, and they're both serious competitors. They have their own history together that they need to kind of sort through. I don't think it's serious, but it's clearly Lou is not over it. I think he always, if he can go back and win more championships with the Devils or any other or Toronto or whatever, he would make it happen. So it's hopefully that relationship only grows, and we get a good long stretch or Patrick Waugh helping the Islanders just be a better hockey team, more consistent, really just in game consistency. You know what? If the record from the rest of the season isn't great, and say they miss the playoffs, I at least want to go back and have not a lot to say about the losses. Right? I've said that for a long time. Lose the games, fine. Teams come back all the time. It's a bad bounce here. I understand that. The problem was they were playing like horseshit and also losing. And I kind of want to look at losses and go, wow, they really battled out there. They really didn't get the bounces. There was a bad call here. They got goalied. I want to be able to come up with not excuses, but the reality of the situation and point those things out. That's what I want out of a Patrick Waugh Islanders team.
Yep.
I want it to be, they went NHL 500 the rest of the way, and take your lumps, come back next season and be better. But they really were a different team. Like, they really took the necessary steps. You saw the growth in all facets of the game, and maybe that's a good way to end the show. Just that, lose games better. Don't just play like shit. They handed other teams losses this season. They didn't let the other teams win. Right? The other teams were not out competing them. Rather, they weren't playing so much better. They were out competing them. That they weren't just like far and away better. The Islanders were just so bad. They were just letting everything kind of happen to them, instead of being part of each game. So it's a good place to end the show. Please rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen or watch the show. If you're a new listener, thank you very much. You can follow us on Twitter for most of our antics. We're also on Instagram, Threads. And if you can stand to look at our faces, you can watch us on YouTube, all at Massaman Hockey. You can find James' work at New Jersey Hockey Now and the Fourth Period, covering the Devils, which, frankly, boo, hiss, tomato, whatever. I'm sorry they're going through injuries, but it's really great for the Islanders. That's one less team, even though the Penguins and Capitals woke up. Hopefully the Islanders get a win against Dallas tonight. And James, for the first time with a new head coach, bring us home.
Until next time, all, enjoy Patrick Waugh.